Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the program. This is the Zero Dark Tony channel. I am Tony D, your host. I want to welcome you guys. I hope everyone is having a fantastic weekend as we step into yet another news week. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of the Epstein files. Jump on in the chat. We're just getting it fired up. This is tricky because, you know, we're opening a file cabinet that the elites and the powerful wish would stay slammed shut. And the Epstein files obviously are being talked about. People are asking what's really inside. There's millions of them. What's still sealed, and why every time this story comes back, the message from the top sounds a lot like, forget it, move on. And I got to say that Trump's posture on this only adds more gasoline to the fire. I really think they need to get to the bottom of it quickly. So we are live going through what's on the public record, what's been hinted at, and what's still in the shadows. This ain't no scripted cable. There's no sanitized talking points, just you, this chat, and a mountain of questions about who knew what and who is being protected. Hey, guys. So before we dive in, smash the like so this stream gets pushed out into the algorithm. Subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss the next drop. And type files in the chat if you're tired of being told to, forget it. I don't think that's acceptable. And people need to be held accountable for these actions. We got to find out what they are. So let's get it going. This is the Epstein files. What are they hiding?
Sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are now suing the Trump administration and Google. The class action lawsuit is over the alleged disclosure of personal information from the Justice Department's release of the Epstein files over the past few months. While the government later withdrew the personal information from the publicly released files, survivors say it was too late. They say their info continues to show up in search results and AI-generated content. We reached out to the DOJ and Google for comment, but have not heard back.
So this is the survivors. They are suing the Department of Justice and Google over a release of their private information that they didn't want released. I think that's pretty reasonable. What do you guys think?
Bringing NBC News senior justice reporter Ryan Riley. And Ryan, tell us more about this suit, specifically why Google is involved and where the suit goes from here.
There was a lot of websites that basically replicated the release of the information from DOJ, putting it in other formats. And so all of that is still sort of out there on Google because a lot of that information was initially published by the Justice Department. It's accessible in other formats. And so that's essentially what this lawsuit is focusing on, trying to get some change from Google and make sure there are some financial penalties in the plaintiff's view to encourage them to stop this sort of thing from happening in the future, Christine.
What else are the survivors seeking here with this lawsuit? What are they saying?
Yeah, we have a statement, part of the lawsuit here that says that the victims here were suffering from renewed trauma, and that strangers call them, they email them, they threaten their physical safety and accuse them of conspiring with Epstein when they are in reality Epstein's victims. And so what they're arguing here is that because this information continues to be published online, this is causing them additional stress and trauma. And obviously the Justice Department faced a lot of criticism for their handling of the release of the Epstein files, and the Justice Department contended that it was sort of an unrealistic deadline that they had to meet up with what Congress had mandated they do, which is release all of these Epstein files. They had hundreds of attorneys working on it, but obviously a lot of information ended up getting out there. The Justice Department did try to get some of that and pull some of that back after it was released, but the consequences of that information being released in the first place are pretty far-reaching here, Christine.
All right, Ryan Riley, thank you.
Wow. So we're going to jump now. One of the biggest parts of this story is a fella by the name of Andrew, who is the fella formerly known as Prince. We're going to check out some of Andrew. We have some stuff on Fergie today. We're going to be digging into some things about the ranch and the island. So fasten your seatbelt. We got a lot to get to.
Windsor was pictured on all fours on top of a woman sprawled out on the ground in the latest batch of Jeffrey Epstein files. Haunting new images show the former prince staring directly at the camera as he is crouched over an unknown female while she lies on the floor with her arms apart. It comes after the Justice Department released millions of never-before-seen files related to Epstein amid mounting interest into the pedo financier. Two other snaps show the barefoot ex-Duke of York wearing a white polo and jeans, touching the unknown woman's stomach. The female appears to be awake in both photos, with her arm seen raised in one of the disturbing images. Another man, whose identity is unknown, lounges in a chair behind the disgraced prince with his feet kicked up on a table. Other chilling shots of Andrew have also emerged as the DOJ continues releasing millions of files related to Epstein. The latest batch of docs heap fresh shame on the disgraced royal, who has already been stripped of his titles and will soon be evicted from his palatial mansion because of his connections to Epstein. Andrew has denied any wrongdoing over his relationship with Epstein. Separate files also showed that Epstein arranged for a beautiful, trustworthy 26-year-old Russian woman to meet Andrew.
Now, this doesn't look good, does it?
The convicted sex offender emailed the ex-prince in 2010, a year after his release from jail for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
Ooh.
More than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are included in
Hit the like button, guys.
Which comes 6 weeks after a deadline mandated in a law signed by Donald Trump. Other files appeared to show that Elon Musk scheduled a visit to Epstein's private Caribbean island in January 2014. And separate documents claimed that Bill Gates contracted a sexually transmitted disease from Russian girls and asked for antibiotics to secretly give to his then-wife Melinda. The allegations have not been verified and are strongly denied by Gates. The trove also included new emails, one of which appeared to show Melania Trump giving her compliments and love to Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein's former accomplice then seemingly called the First Lady Sweet Pea in a friendly response. Epstein killed himself in a New York jail in 2019 while facing charges for sex trafficking of minors. His accomplice Maxwell is serving a 20-year term for sex trafficking and related crimes.
Wow. So, Andrew's been arrested. He's had his titles removed. He has got a lot of trouble coming to him. It is just beginning for Prince Andrew, but we need to see more people in high positions like this being held accountable. This is Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, Darren Indyke. He was deposed the other day regarding his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to hear some of the punch points from that in this piece. Here we go.
Bannon, Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew.
Yes, that person was
Do it doubles.
either then coming after a meeting or just leaving prior to the meeting.
So, sorry, are we talking about more than one occasion?
Twice,
Both of these encounters in Mr. Epstein's home?
yes.
Have you ever met Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew?
Yes.
When?
It's difficult for me to say. It was obviously before he died. And it was also in the context of me going to the New York townhouse.
Before Mr. Epstein died.
Before Mr. Epstein died, yes, sorry, not Andrew Windsor. Apologies. Also in the context of me going to Mr. Epstein's house for status updates on the matters that I was working on for him. I guess no longer Prince Andrew. That person was either then coming after a meeting or just leaving prior to the meeting. And either I was introduced once or twice to that person.
The former Prince Andrew.
Correct.
So, sorry, are we talking about more than one occasion?
Twice,
And were both of these encounters in Mr. Epstein's home?
yes, in the New York townhouse, and they were passing encounters.
Was the former Prince Andrew in the company of women when you met him?
No,
Did you ever become aware of the former Prince Andrew having a sexual relationship with any women connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
I became aware of allegations made against Prince Andrew subsequently.
At what point in time?
I don't even know how to triangulate that.
Darren.
Before Jeffrey Epstein's death?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Before his Florida arrest?
No.
Have you ever met?
And I mean, that's helpful for me. Not before the arrest, not before the conviction, either. I think it was subsequent to the jail time.
Have you ever met Jess Staley?
I met Jess Staley also about 2 times, maybe 3 times. Also, once in passing, and once I was delivering a trust document to her.
To Mr. Staley?
To Mr. Staley, yes.
Why was that?
Mr. Staley was a signatory on a trust for Mr. Epstein.
Do you recall which trust?
It was a prior iteration of an estate planning trust.
Did you ever become aware of Mr. Staley having a sexual relationship with any women connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
Hit the like button for me, guys.
I have no personal knowledge of that, never observed anything like that. After Epstein's death, I became aware there were allegations, I think, in the bank litigation that Staley had a relationship. Mr. Staley had a relationship. I have no way of knowing whether that's true or not.
Mr. Indyke, if I could return to the topic
Watch his shifty eyes.
of private investigators. Sorry, I'm gonna table this one for the moment and come back to
I'd
it.
be shifted.
Skipping ahead to Mr. Epstein's death and subsequent developments, when was the last time you spoke with Jeffrey Epstein?
A couple of days before he died.
What did you talk about?
Just to be clear on that.
It's privilege. It was not personal. It was privilege. It was based upon his being in the jail at the time, and it was regarding subjects that one would talk about, like bail and things like that.
Okay, so I am going to ask the witness for the substance of those conversations.
Oh.
Those are subject to attorney-client privilege.
Yeah,
He's
I think
not
so.
going to be able to answer the
I'm not gonna
details on that.
ACP.
Okay, so I'm going to refer that one to the majority for a ruling, and for the record, the question is, what did Jeffrey Epstein say to you during your last conversation with him those 2 days before he died?
And you have a generic description of him already from the witness.
The will, as we discussed earlier today, Mr. Indyke named you and Mr. Khan as co-executors, correct?
Correct.
It also provides, as I understand, for Jeffrey Epstein's assets to ultimately be transferred to the 1953 trust. Is that correct?
That's also correct.
And
But let's take a moment on that. That's only after the will and the estate is fully probated, which means that all claims are paid. All of those issues have to be resolved before any assets, if there are any remaining, go to that trust and then are subject to the terms of that trust.
and it's also my understanding that you and Karina Shuliak are the largest beneficiaries under the trust, with bequests of $50 million respectively. Is that right?
It just keeps crawling
Not
up
exactly
on him.
right. I believe that Karina has several bequests under that will, including the properties, including an annuity, and including another disposition. The total amount of the dollar amounts, I believe, are like $100 million to her, plus all of the properties were to go to her. But obviously that didn't happen.
But I am correct that the trust includes a bequest to you of $50 million.
Trust includes a bequest to me for $50 million. Yes, but that again, that only comes to play if any money is distributed to that trust, and as it stands right now, certainly that amount's not coming to the trust, if anything.
Did you discuss with Jeffrey Epstein the subject of his making you?
I mean, this is Jeffrey Epstein's attorney. So this gentleman knows a lot of dirt, and he's trying to hide it behind the attorney-client privilege. I don't really know if that counts here.
You a beneficiary of the trust?
What do you guys think in the chat about this? I mean, attorney-client privilege. They're going to have to forward it to the other House members to get a ruling on this. This one's going to be difficult. They're going to have to squeeze him. This is not just this isn't the faucet technique. This is the toothpaste technique.
Just briefly, other than that he was doing it, and I should give direction to the attorney that was working on it to
he knew.
Make the changes.
Do you have an
tell me that he didn't know? Come on, Darren.
understanding as to why he named you as a beneficiary?
Hit the like button.
I can't tell you what was in his mind.
Did it surprise you?
No, I was a beneficiary in previous iterations. But I, like many people, and many of the both professionals, assistants, colleagues, many people were in the document.
A lot of people were in the documents, and there were lots of documents. So we're going to get into just a little quick story on Fergie here. Fergie also was stripped of her royal honors, being the former wife of Andrew. Here we go.
Rob, thank you. The former Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, has been stripped of another prestigious title because of her links to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Europe correspondent Ben Downey explains.
Well, it appears there is always a new low for Sarah Ferguson to fall to. The latest low is losing her Freedom of the City of York title in a unanimous vote, a title and honour that was bestowed upon her back in 1987 when she toured the city with her then new husband, Prince Andrew. York's council finished handing down a unanimous vote to strip her of the honour because the councillors say the city's reputation is constantly being tarnished via association to the Jeffrey Epstein saga through the former Duke and Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
He's been stripped of it, she needs stripping of it, and I don't know, she never comes there anyway.
I feel sorry for her, but she got herself into that position.
Yeah, any kind of association with the Epstein files, anything like that, my immediate reaction is just get rid of them. Don't like it.
Andrew was stripped of the majority of his titles late last year by his elder brother, the King, due to his sordid connections to the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. But he lost this Freedom of the City title in 2022 after he settled with his late accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Sarah Ferguson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor both deny any wrongdoing. That's done little for their reputations. York City Council hopes this move might go some way to improving its own.
It's a big-ass head. All right, so did I say that out loud? All right, we're going to jump in. There are some disturbing videos that were found in some of the files, and we have some coverage on that by Law and Crime, our good friend Jesse Weber, doing some great work over there. So we're going to take a look at some of these videos here. This is Law and Crime, and this is the sidebar. Let's have a listen.
So Sarah and Nadia, are you guys having a good time? You can see I have a little sore on my face that I got from some black guy trying to kiss me. It's really disgusting.
Just when you thought there weren't any more Jeffrey Epstein videos to go through, think again. From this bizarre tape to more footage of what appears to be young females to this brand new prison video that definitely is going to add to the conversation of the financier's death, we got a lot to get into. And this was as he was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. Sex trafficking of minors, by the way. So look at this video. This is from August 10th, 2019. You see it says L tier, right? The L tier section of the Metropolitan Correctional Center. This footage is from after 3:15 a.m. And you can see these correctional officers walking around, writing, seemingly talking on the phone, right outside of Epstein's cell, a few feet away. Why is that significant? because this was the night Epstein died. The New York Post says this newly released footage shows correctional officers Tova Noel and Michael Thomas. We've talked about them before. They were both arrested and charged in connection with allegedly.
Those were the two security guards in the prison, in the Metropolitan Detention Center there, that said that while they were online, they were looking at new motorcycles and furniture and all sorts of different things online, that they appeared to be doing some shopping. So you see here, they ended up where? In court.
Falsifying reports to make it look like they properly made the rounds that night before Epstein's death. The charges were ultimately dropped, but they were fired. And the investigation revealed that they just were allegedly negligent in their duties, with Thomas and Noel surfing the web for motorcycles and sports news, furniture, that they fell asleep, that Noel allegedly admitted that they didn't do the required checks on Epstein. Thomas allegedly saying, quote, "We messed up." This was according to an indictment that they both faced. So you look at this video and you're saying, okay, does this video show that they didn't do what they were supposed to do? And remember, it was determined that Epstein killed himself sometime between 10:30 p.m. the night before and 6:30 a.m. the morning of. That is when his body was found. So in this footage, Epstein is apparently just feet away in his cell. He's just down a set of stairs behind the officer station on the 9th floor of the L-tier wing. And when you're looking at this, I want to put it into some context here. So according to the DOJ's Inspector General report that was released in June of 2023, it stated, quote, "At approximately 10:39 p.m., an unidentified CO appeared to walk up the L-tier stairway and then reappeared within view of the camera at 10:41 p.m. This is believed to be the last time anyone entered L-tier before approximately 6:30 a.m. on August 10th. Between approximately 10:40 p.m. on August 9th and just before 6:30 a.m. on August 10th, the OIG did not observe on the recorded video any CO or other individual enter any of the SHU tiers, which is consistent with CO Tova Noel.
The OIG is Office of Inspector General. Every state has one.
And material handler Michael Thomas's admissions to the OIG that the SHU rounds and counts were not conducted during that time frame. And as we reported recently, because we did a whole episode on this as well, Noel is accused of Googling Jeffrey Epstein, searching about him shortly before his body was found. And I go to the Google searches. So there was a document in the Epstein files that says, timeline analysis of desktop property user Tova Noel. Yeah, the desktop computers were investigated, were looked at, were forensically examined. August 10th, 2019, 5:52:29, user searches Google for, quote, latest on Epstein in jail. August 10th, 2019.
She was looking on Google while she was supposed to be doing her job. She's looking on Google about Jeffrey Epstein. I did not know that. That is interesting.
4303, user navigates an IE to this.
How is she not in prison?
CNBC article. It says basically documents released about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. August 10th, 2019, 5:46:06, user navigates an IE to this other search. Jeffrey Epstein repeatedly refused to answer questions about allegations he orchestrated sex trafficking ring documents. There's another document titled Forensic Notes, LITS, Leonard Forensic Request for Examination of 2 Desktops from Bureau of Prisons. You go to page 23 and highlighted in yellow is Google search for latest on Epstein in jail. August 10, 2019, 5:42:56. August 10, 2019, 5:52:29. So this is documentation that Noel seemingly was researching Jeffrey Epstein less than 40 minutes before Thomas would end up finding Epstein's dead body in his cell. And as we covered in our previous sidebar, she was interviewed about this and she basically said, look, I was just looking into him. I didn't really know much about him. I wanted to know who he was. And this footage that, again, we're showing you, this new piece of video, is just another piece of footage and layer to the Epstein death part of his story. And even though Noel and Thomas, they were never criminally charged with killing Epstein. By the way, no one has ever been charged with killing Epstein. The official determination was that he died by suicide. You had this allegation, and I mentioned this in the prior episode, just again puts it into context with what we're talking about here from this video. So apparently an inmate at the MCC spoke with the FBI, and there's a 5-page handwritten note of an interview with the inmate who claims that on the morning of August 10, 2019, he hears officers shouting at 6:30 a.m., breathe, breathe. And then he allegedly hears an officer say, dudes, you killed that dude. A female guard replied, if he is dead, we're going to cover it up and he's going to have an alibi, my officers. And then you also have this allegation that inmates later on claim Miss Noel killed Jeffrey. To be clear, there is no corroborating evidence to back this up, and the DOJ's investigation concluded, quote, none of the inmates who were interviewed had any credible information suggesting Epstein's cause of death was something other than suicide. Okay, that's one part. But like I said, I want to dedicate some more time to more videos in the Epstein release, which I don't believe we got a chance to cover in our last episode so much, like this one. So according to the Telegraph, this video of Jeffrey Epstein is of him seemingly in detention. I do wonder if this was when he was convicted of sex crimes back in Florida. Remember back in 2008, the Sweetheart deal, pled guilty to state charges of solicitation of prostitution, including of a minor, right, procurement of a minor. This was in an effort to avoid the more serious federal charges. He was sentenced to 13 months in jail. There was a work release conditions as part of that. So this is him, and I'm going to show you the video in a minute, referencing two females. I say always females because I don't know the ages of a lot of these people, including in the videos, the ones that have been redacted out or the ones that are being mentioned. So he references these two females, and he talks about pictures on the wall and, I don't know, seemingly contracting a sexually transmitted disease from a man.
I'm pretending I'm talking to Darren. So, hi Darren. So Sarah and Nadia, are you guys having a good time? You can see I have a little
When he says Darren, that's the name of the lawyer that we were just watching, by the way.
sore on my face that I got from some black guy trying to kiss me. It's really disgusting. With his tongue. Oh, it's really, oh. Anyway, I have pictures up on the wall. I had to borrow the Scotch tape to get the pictures on the wall. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Moving on, you got this strange one too, and it concerns director Woody.
Ugh, Woody, gross.
Allen. So we have noted Woody Allen's connection to Epstein before, right? You have this photo of Epstein visiting Allen on what appears to be a film set. You have another photo, right? Epstein's laughing, this time sitting at the table. And Allen made news last year when, according to People, in a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein on his 63rd birthday in 2016, where he seemingly compared Jeffrey Epstein to Dracula. They were New York City neighbors, apparently. I'm just going to read you a part of it. It said, quote, being neighbors, my wife Sunyi and I have been invited for dinner many times, always accepting, always interesting. Wide variety of interesting people at every dinner just about. Politicians, scientists, teachers, magicians, comedians, intellectuals, journalists, an entomologist, a concert pianist. I say well served, often it's by some professional houseman, and just as often by several young women, reminding one of Castle Dracula, where Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who service the place. And the large phone and computer at his right hand does take some of the relaxed home cooking atmosphere out of it, but one can't have everything, not at Castle Dracula. And you even had this email where Epstein seems to joke about being accused of going to a pedophile convention when he visits Paris with director Woody Allen, writing in a 2012 email back to someone who says, Le pedophile convention? And Epstein writes, I think pedophile is the plural. Take of that what you will, but I want you to look at this video, okay? Where it seems that Epstein and Woody Allen are like staging this photo to make it look like Allen is giving Epstein a plot of land, and then you see a young female in the background. Take a look.
Whoa. This is the plot of land was the building.
I've never seen this before. Have you guys seen this before? I've never seen this before. Hold on a second. 86 GOP coming in hot with 20 gifted memberships. Thank you so much, 86. Welcome to the program. Hope you're doing well.
Really
Thank you very much. And welcome new members. You got some emojis now to play with.
Okay. You got it? You got it. So you just have to hand me the land. That's your job. You want the photograph? Okay. Just tell me. Okay.
Okay.
Sue, take a picture. Okay.
Yeah, not a lot of context there, but I don't know, just thought I'd call it out.
Well, Soon was taking the picture because he said Soon. That would be Sunyi Previn. Or Sunyi Allen.
Mentioned again that there are a lot of videos of females. Again, we don't know the ages, blacked out, redacted. You can kind of get a sense of maybe what is going on. We mentioned this in a previous video that there's videos of what appear to be children. A lot of these videos, though, that we didn't get a chance to show you last time are very sexualized. People walking around look like they're modeling. And remember, Epstein was accused of being linked to model scout Jean-Luc Brunel, who was facing his own sex crimes charges before he died. And Epstein also founded and built a modeling agency. So we try to make sense of what these videos could be, perhaps, and why they're part of the Epstein files. Again, disturbing, like this video of a female seemingly wearing bunny ears and making what sounds like kissy noises.
No. Don't even try it.
And there's a lot of like blacked out and redacted faces and bodies, but a lot of females dancing. We mentioned in our prior episode about people dancing in what appears to be Epstein's office. I think this one is Epstein with, again, who appear to be young females. Take a look.
Not to mention the thousands of hours of videos that they've actually seized at his New York mansion, right?
It's actually amazing how you don't have money. Keep going. It's amazing what happens to you. Keep playing.
Now, I also realized we didn't play the actual sound from the video of Epstein seemingly chasing around females in a kitchen, and I think you can tell how young they are. Take a look.
Sick, twisted son of a bitch, motherfucker. Oh my good God.
Now, I also want to call this out. There's a lot of footage, but I want to call this out. I want to call out this footage of what appears to look like an apartment tour.
Exactly.
Why does that matter? I tried to put two and two together. I don't have a lot of context for this, but this is what came to my mind. There have been allegations that Jeffrey Epstein housed his apparent victims. The New York Post reporting that he kept them at a condo that was apparently just blocks away from his townhouse. Now, I'm not saying this apartment is that, but to give you an example about gifting apartments, this is an example of what I'm talking about. The FBI had this form, and it was about an interview with the FBI and federal prosecutors. It was in 2019, where this alleged victim claims that Epstein and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of sex trafficking, 20 years in prison, sexually abused her when she was 14 years old. And I want to read you a portion of this. Redacted's interaction with Epstein faded out. Redacted would make excuses. In approximately 2001, she stopped contact with Epstein and Maxwell. Redacted had a boyfriend at the time who questioned who Epstein was. Epstein called and screamed at her, telling her how ungrateful she was. Epstein's attorney, Darren, known to law enforcement as Darren Indyke, contacted Redacted and told her that she owed Epstein $10,000 because Epstein co-signed for an apartment in New York City where Redacted and her family lived.
Like and subscribe, guys. Like and
had been
subscribe.
leased out to someone who was not paying the rent. So whenever I see these videos of like an apartment tour, I do wonder, were these videos being sent to Jeffrey Epstein so he could approve of it? You know, if he was signing off on it, if he was paying the rent, if he was paying apartments, something I thought about. Now, I also want to get a little bit more into Jeffrey Epstein speaking. I do find it very unsettling and odd to just hear him speak. You get a sense of who he was. And there was a lot of video footage of Epstein being interviewed by Steve Bannon.
You could see this previous interview. We went through the whole thing in a previous video on this channel, but this was the final interview of Jeffrey Epstein done by Steve Bannon in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan digs. So,
the former White House chief strategist. According to the files, there was this idea to try to rehabilitate Epstein's image by producing a documentary about him. It's unclear why Bannon would have wanted to do this. But remember, this is after Epstein pleaded guilty to those Florida state charges. And I do want to highlight this key moment. A lot of talk about how Epstein was able to ingratiate himself with world leaders and titans in business and politics, right? What did he offer? Why did they want to be associated with him? Sure, there's a lot of people who look at this and say they wanted to be involved with Epstein because of, you know, Epstein's Island and the young girls and the women, right, and all that. There was also an aspect of it, he was this money man. Why would Les Wexner want to entrust Jeffrey Epstein with all of his money and give him power of attorney? What was his expertise? What did he have to offer? What was the benefit of Epstein in their lives? So just listen to this part.
The knowledge of money they don't have expertise, they have no degrees in finance. They really, and this is one of the major problems, their expertise, if they have any financial knowledge, is of their own checking account or bank account and filling in their own taxes. So many world leaders who don't really have a financial underpinning make fundamental errors when it comes to money on a country or institutional level. Let me give you an example. If you, Mr. Bannon, if I said your assets increased last year, you'd say, that sounds pretty good. And I'd say, what does that mean to you? You'd say, well, I have more money. I guess I'm wealthier. I'd say, yes. And if your debt increased, would you feel wealthier or poorer? You'd say, well, I don't want to have increased debt. I don't like the idea of that sound, increased debt. Now, that and world leaders understand when their assets go up, they feel better. I'm in a privileged position to have some of the world's smartest people come to my house and tell me what they think about different subjects. And I finally realized that the thing that they had most in common was there was this area, no matter how smart they were, that when I asked them the questions, they said they'd have to resort to a 500 or 1,000-year-old response to that question, which was, I don't know.
So again, it's like this idea that he saw the financial system in a way maybe they didn't. He was able to earn them a return that they couldn't get otherwise. He was a good financial advisor. I thought this was interesting too when he was locked up while the 2008 financial crisis was happening, especially since at one point in his life, Jeffrey Epstein was part of a firm, Lehman Brothers, that was very much involved in all of that. Take a look.
The night before you go to bed, it doesn't dawn on you at all. You never have a moment of self-reflection that, how did I end up on this metal cot when I should be at the center of things?
No, I had a telephone, so I've said, I can talk to, it makes no difference where I am, in fact. I'm still talking to the same person if I was at my home in Palm Beach. But I'm here in jail.
Home in Palm Beach.
I can dial my own phone.
No, but you can also make 1,000 phone calls. Here you got to make one, and he's got to take.
Think how much better that was. I had to decide who was the right person to call. That was unusual for me.
And then I want you to listen to when he's pressed on going to jail on those Florida charges back in the day.
You had to make just 2 collect calls. You cannot
like button for me, guys.
Tell me sometime during that day you did not have that conversation with yourself of how the did I do this to myself to put myself in West Palm Beach in a 6x9 cell with a metal bed with a brown shirt that said trustee spelled wrong.
So did I find it amazing that I was there? That's a
not amazing. I don't want to say it's not funny. Oh, I thought
I wasn't funny.
Right. But not amazing.
It was incredible.
Incredible in what way? Incredible like how do I do this to myself?
No. It's as incredible as me sitting here in this house. They are both just 2 sides of the coin. That's how I think about it. That my life today is incredible.
Do you consider yourself a stoic?
No. I consider myself a hermit. Stoics are not very happy.
Being a hermit then, being in that 6x9 cell, being in the cell, qua the cell was not the problem, right?
Correct.
What was the problem?
Eating the almond joy bars.
Because you couldn't eat the food.
No, right. Remember, my life is.
Did that ever strike you that I can't eat the food because somebody might have done something to it? I gotta live off an almond joy bar, 1 a day or 2 a day or whatever. How many ever sneak in a day?
No sneaking in.
Your 1 almond joy bar, it did not hit you at some time? How the did I do this?
No.
By the way, I just thought this was an interesting exchange when Epstein talks about what he was wearing in jail.
So I was wearing a brown jumper and a brown pair of pants given to me by the jail with the word trustee on the back.
Because you had qualified to be a trustee?
Well, the funny part was it was spelled Trusty. So I wasn't really sure. I'd been a trustee in many different operations, but it was the first time it was actually printed on my back and spelled incorrectly.
probably had a higher level of being a trustee at that than you had.
He's been a trustee in many different operations, is what he just said. Okay. That could be taken a lot of ways.
All the boards that you were trustees, right?
Yeah, that's right, because as the trustee meant you get 2 devices to clean your toilet as opposed to 1.
Yeah, but it also meant that you had some sort of personal fiduciary own responsibility for oneself, right?
In the jail?
Well, that's what being a trustee is. That's where they give you 2.
Yes, you get 2 cleaners. I was a trustee in the jail because I was able to teach some of the kids to help them get their GED. So that's how they gave me a trustee job.
It'd be interesting what that documentary or program would have looked like. Again,
wait a second. So he's saying that he was given a trustee job to help kids get their GED after he was arrested for soliciting a minor. Okay. Jesus.
Seemed to be much discussion in these interviews with Bannon about the actual charges and what he pled guilty to and those accusations. I mean, from a legal point of view, he probably didn't want to revisit that, probably didn't want to say anything that could further implicate him or incriminate him, you know, also from a criminal point of view and also from a litigation point of view. But I do want to close this out. I just have to play it one more time. This is, again, from the last video, but how could I not bring this up?
There's something deeply up with you.
When you say ownership in the system, it doesn't mean...
Let's start over.
Okay.
Yeah. So flip over your phone too, because
yes.
I don't want anyone to see
you
on your phone. So maybe flip it down or something.
Yeah.
Who knows what the comes up with that phone?
That's correct.
We don't want to send you
KSA.
I can't not believe I've got the magic moment when you're in prison or jail, wherever the is.
It's
in
crazy.
Solitary.
Now, there's a funny part to that we missed, which is said.
Go ahead, tell it.
The funny part is just what you asked me.
Is there anything funnier than that?
No.
For black humor,
I don't make any black comments. Sorry. You asked me what I was wearing.
That's right. You're too wrapped up in the Me Too movement.
Yes.
Just ask a question. Is your money dirty money?
No, it's not. So, in fact.
Why is it not dirty money?
Because I earned it.
But you earned it. We went back to this before. You earned it. You earned it advising the worst people in the world, right? That do enormous bad things, and just to make more money.
So, instead of asking me the question, should you take the money? Because I think it's a legitimate question.
You think it's a legitimate question?
Yes, no question. Because I think about it, I think ethics is always a complicated subject. But I can tell you that with the money I gave to help try to eradicate polio in Pakistan and India, instead of asking me whether that money should be given to these children for vaccines, I think you might want to ask their mothers who received the vaccine, who know their child now won't get polio, and ask them if Epstein should have helped these people. You're a mathematician.
We walked into that clinic.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Where they're giving that money out to these people that are in the most dire straits of poverty and sickness, and told them that the money was coming from class 3 sexual predator?
Tier 1.
Was tier 1's the highest and worst?
No, I'm the lowest. I'm the lowest.
You're the lowest. Okay, tier 1, you're the lowest. But a criminal.
Yes.
That the money came from them. What percentage of people do you estimate? I understand you don't like probabilities. Do you estimate would say, I don't care, I want the money for my children?
I would say everyone said, I want the money for my children.
Did they know where the money came from?
I think if you told them, if I told them the devil
100%.
The devil
himself.
The devil himself said, I'm going to exchange some dollars for your child's life.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question. Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Because you have all the attributes. You're incredibly smart. You remember the devil is somebody knows
smart?
The devil's brilliant. You read Milton's Paradise Lost.
No, the devil scares me.
He is at the number 1 or 2 archangel, and the reason he goes to hell and leads the rebellion is because he can't be the top guy. And his thing is, I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven.
I saw that in a movie once called American Dharma. I don't remember who said it. Okay, we have to go.
Okay, good.
Okay,
that was good.
Again, more videos in the Epstein saga tells us maybe a little bit more.
Put a 1 in the chat if you've never seen that footage before. Also hit the like button after you put that 1 in the chat. We're going to keep it moving. Patrick Bet David had a story here. And we're going to look at that real quick. And I'm going to show you in the title here. Epstein was murdering people. That is the title here. Ex-Epstein employee exposes bizarre bed request. I think we're just sort of scratching the tip of what is happening here with Epstein. We're just scratching the surface, tip of the iceberg. Good. I'm glad. I hope you guys all subscribe and hang out. We do this a lot. So this is very interesting. We also have coming up some coverage about a case about ketamine and prostitution and all that fun stuff. Let's go.
Have you guys seen what CNN showed when they worked with one of their interior designers, and not the interior designer? CNN played a clip this weekend. They went and interviewed this guy who was the guy who was the interior designer. He would decorate a bedroom.
Big shout out to Patrick Bet David for a lot of the work that he puts together on some of this.
The island for Epstein.
Ooh,
this video went viral when they did this interview. I don't know if you've seen this clip. Have you seen this yet? I'm glad you haven't, Tom. I want you to see this. Adam, I want you to see this clip as well. Rob, if you want to pull it up, he sounds like a very, just an honest man who's saying, here's what I noticed, and I eventually have to say, I can't work for you anymore. Watch what he was talking about. Very, very, parents, very disturbing, not any disturbing visual, very disturbing what messages he's given. Go ahead.
Bring up a couple race.
Oh.
There were bunk beds. And I said to him, I said, oh my God, are you expecting grandchildren? And he said, no, these are for the girls.
That's architect and interior designer Robert Couturier. He was hired by Jeffrey Epstein in 2010 to work on his island. He worked for a few months and then he quit. Couturier told the FBI that one of the reasons he decided to quit were those specific demands from Epstein.
Especially for the bunk rooms, they had to be for girls.
So Epstein met with a designer to have bunk beds put in the quarters with the girls. And this is the designer, and he's going to explain that to you right now.
Girls, and pink and this sorts of things.
So there's no mistaking this wasn't for women.
There's no mistaking. You don't put women on bunk beds, I'm sorry. There was another little room with computers, and I said, what is this room? And he said, this room is for the girls when they have fun. And they play with their computers. The whole house was very odd because we were on the beach and the house had heavy dark curtains everywhere. The windows were never really opened. It felt terrible. The girls and the young women who went on the island were basic prisoners. You couldn't leave.
We dug through the files released by the Department of Justice and found the pictures and videos that show the signs of something being off on the island, even as rich and powerful guests visited. Those signs were impossible to ignore, says this designer. What do you think about the people who did go to the island and say they never saw anything?
Listen, I think you can decide that you're blind. You can decide that you only want to see what you want to see.
I mean, I get it. Say what you will about PBD. I get it. I don't know the guy. But, he was the first one to really bring this to a major audience because news stations just aren't getting it the way that a channel like his would. So he put out a lot of this information. And for that, I give him props.
But the idea that a person would go to that island and not see something weird.
You don't have to like somebody for them to show something that you haven't seen before. You know what I mean?
It's impossible to me. For me to have seen it, everybody else had to see it.
When you think back to how obvious it was to you, do you wonder about, no one saying anything back then?
I've been wondering for the last 15 years. If in 2010 I knew it and we all knew it and I was interrogated and then nothing happened, and that we could have saved so many young women that wouldn't have had to go through what they went through.
Wow.
Vinny.
I mean, do we need more proof of what this person was and what he was doing
potentially who he was working for and what the objective was. What do you know that Zorro Ranch, they're actively right now looking for dead bodies in the hills of foreign girls that were alleged.
The next Epstein story I do is going to be about Zorro Ranch and some of the things they're talking about now. Some of the authorities have been authorized to look for bodies at the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico.
Allegedly strangled and killed. This thing is so, I get there's a bunch
in New Mexico Ranch.
In New Mexico Ranch. There's so much going on for a bunk bed. I believe that guy. I believe that guy 100%. What he's talking about and the fact that, you know, bunk beds, he's like, these aren't for women. These are for children. Who knows on that island, Pat? Who knows what the dentist office was? Because like I said this before, when you're sexually, you know, trafficking these girls and these young kids from all over the place and they're with a high profile person, client, whatever, whoever these people were, you cannot let them go back into the public knowing that I remember that face. I remember that face because they become a liability and you got to get rid of them. And that's the sad truth. And on an island like that had trap doors
and subscribe, hit that like button for me, guys. I appreciate it.
The ocean is there and nobody monitoring him. I'm pretty sure he had all law enforcement, everybody in his back pocket. I think it's disgusting.
The like button just definitely helps more people like you see this video. And people need to see this information. This needs to be, you know, sent far and wide. So I appreciate it, guys. Welcome.
And I think the fact that, you know, Pam Bondi and all these people have shifted and nobody's even talking about, like, I'm so happy you brought it up again, just to keep reeling everybody to come back in. Do not forget about what this guy was. Do not forget about the people and the organizations that he worked for. And please don't forget about the little girls and the women that were trafficked, abused, raped, and a lot of them potentially murdered. And that's the hard truth.
Tom.
You think they were murdered?
Do I believe that they were murdered? Yeah. 1,000%. You know, you say don't say 100%. Adam, there's no way you could take a child, 13, 14, 15, 18, whatever, and have them hook up with Mr. X, who's widely known in the world from, I'm not even going to say name, just, you could just pick a name, and then you go, okay, little girl, go back to your country, or go back to the United States, or go back to being homeless, and we trust that you're never going to say anything. I believe that, Adam, when you mess with evil like that, so evil does what evil does, and it's not human life to us is so important, Adam, because we're not in that world. To them, it's expendable. And the way that you hear these emails and hear how they were talking about people and human beings, it's really, really, it's a sad truth.
And by the way, I respect your opinion, but you mean that he's down there having parties, inviting women, doing whatever he is sexually, and then you think he goes and murders them?
I'm not saying all of them, but I think if the client
how
was...
many you think?
One is too many. I mean, if you're asking how many, let's say one.
Too many.
Yeah.
Why are there
law enforcement digging in the dirt? But I'm curious, where are you going with? You don't believe that happened?
Well, I'd love to hear his opinion, and then I'll go.
Look, I can. No, you started the conversation. Okay.
Sure.
Then you went with it. You jumped in. So
let's remove everything we know about Epstein and just focus on this video, because that's what you wanted to do. This video.
Yeah.
This video is the least compelling video I've ever seen in my life, because he has bunk beds. Let me tell you something.
With no kids, with no children.
Let me explain something to you, my friend. This is the beauty of living in South Beach and living in the nightlife world my whole life. Do you know how many apartments I know in Miami that are model apartments that have bunk beds? All of them. All these women come down here and work for Wilhelmina or CMG or this thing or Kathleen Gleason, all these model M2, all these modeling agencies, dozens of them, okay? And they all have hundreds of models, and they have a 2-bedroom apartment. So what do they do for all the models? Boom, 8 models are living in an apartment. How are they gonna do that? Boom, bunk beds. So if you're trying to tell me that because they got bunk beds, that Epstein is murdering people?
Children.
You're saying it's children. I'm saying they're models. Based on my experience.
No, you didn't hear the interview. The girl said they're not for women. The guy said they're not for women.
Some random gay French guy's like, I don't know why the bunk beds are full. I'm letting you know just on this video. If all you got is he got bunk beds,
wow,
you can have literally 10,000 models in America say, yeah, I've slept on a bunk bed. Yeah, I've slept on a bunk bed. By the way, you know where else they have bunk beds? You ever been to a college dorm? They got bunk beds everywhere. All I'm saying is this. We have to use discretion. If we're going to do everything and throw Epstein down he's the devil, I get it. But if your only evidence is like, yeah, there's bunk beds, we're going to have to do a little bit better.
I think besides the bunk beds, Adam, and I understand what you're saying, and that in this one video,
Well, it's just the guy's feeling. It's his instinct. It's what he felt when he was there. It's not just about the bunk beds. It's other things that he saw. Those were his words. So this was not just about bunk beds. This was about something else.
Oh my God, this isn't blowing the lid off of everything. But when she's saying little chairs and little computers for kids to be playing, Epstein didn't have any kids. I do understand. I'll play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
People did fly there. Lutnick or whoever came there with their children, so I could understand that angle of it. But from what we've seen, from the droves of freaking emails and everything and they're all talking code talk with eating jerky and beef, $20,000 this and pizza that. Adam,
there's a lot of smoke.
Adam, there's a lot of smoke, but at the same token, where are thousands of people were there? Thousands of people and multiple women. Where are they?
I mean, and that place in Zorro Ranch was allegedly the place where a lot of experimentation was done. Everything from, longevity to fertility, all kinds of experiments. And, Epstein was known to sort of get together and invite and have scientists, all the latest people who are, he had, who's the guy? Hawking. He had Hawking at his island, and that's just one example, right? So let's jump over. There are some records that are being shredded, apparently. So we're going to hear about that.
Congress is considering moving forward on many aspects of the Epstein probe, and that includes these questions around his death and the aftermath. There are reports about suspicious activities in the Trump DOJ overseen jail where Epstein was found. Congress now wants a key prison guard who was once indicted, Tova Knoll, and is considered the last person known to see Epstein, to have a private interview. Now, they asked her to come in as soon as tomorrow. We're now told the interview is postponed, but the panel wants to work with her attorney to get her testimony. All of this comes amid a bombshell report based on Epstein files documentation from the Miami Herald's Julie K. Brown and her team that revealed bags of documents which were suspiciously shredded and discarded out of the Epstein jail days after he died. This was so concerning that there were immediate tips and sort of watchdog warnings, including a corrections officer calling the FBI saying they'd never seen that amount of bags shredded. Days later, another officer wrote to investigators raising a similar alarm. Now, we've been tracking all this for you. We have our detailed timeline, which shows, of course, many different developments, but you can see it highlighted here, the shredded document activity and a whistleblower alerting the FBI about it coming right there just days after he died. None of this, I want you to know, and we checked this, actually appears where it should in the DOJ's Watchdog Inspector General report. That is a problem for the DOJ because, as Brown's reporting shows, they interviewed people about this, they were on notice of it, and whether they deemed it a crime, a problem, or okay, it should have fallen somewhere in that voluminous report. I'm joined now by the reporter who broke the story, Julie K. Brown from the Miami Herald. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I want to get to the conspicuous absence of that information in what was supposed to be a watchdog report. But first, tell us what your reporting found and any developments since then, since you broke the story.
Well, these were documents. We really don't know exactly what they were, but they were documents that were being examined by what they call this rapid response or after incident team that was put together by the Bureau of Prisons. So these were...
Julie is an investigative journalist for the Miami Herald, and she is, in fact, as he said, the one who broke the Epstein story. There's a lot more about the Epstein stories with Vanity Fair and such, but we'll get into that another show.
Bureau of Prisons personnel. We later, in the wake of this report, found a list of the people that were on that particular action team that came into MCC and did, presumably tried to gather evidence.
Yeah, we watched it all.
But what we're hearing is what they were doing was compiling papers that they were putting into a shredder. In fact, one of the guards reported that an orderly told him that the orderly was asked to help shred the documents and then take take those bags outside to a dumpster by the rear gate, where a corrections officer also noted that this was kind of strange. There were so many bags at the time. They had never, one of them commented that this was an amount that they had never seen dumped out there before.
Yeah. And so then you go to the DOJ has systems for this, and your reporting and the files, which we reviewed here ourselves, show those alarms I mentioned, the reporting of this in. Someone also wrote a judge about it. There was a concern that the problem was coming from within the government. So what do? Well, you're supposed to go to the independent watchdogs, and that's one of the ways. And so is it a problem that the Inspector General's office spent years looking at this? We know they interviewed people about it, so they were aware of it, and they didn't mention it at all in their report.
Yeah, they pretty much discounted it. And another reason why it's curious that they did discount it wasn't just the reports of the shredding. The Southern District of New York prosecutors had found
that's not downtown Julie Brown.
Evidence that there were things that were missing. They were missing all the inmate counts in the days up to Epstein's death. Now, we don't know. We only have what's in the file. It's possible they found these documents, but they were saying that they were missing documents. In fact, their response when they heard about this shredding was, can we go out to the dumpster and see what this stuff is? But unfortunately, they didn't act swiftly enough, so they couldn't do anything
let me just
about it.
slow you down on that point, because it's so important. You're referring to the fact
Thank
that
you.
people
Welcome.
who were on site, people at the SDNY U.S. Attorney's Office, viewers will remember that's a very independent a shop. Even in the first term, it was clashing with Trump over various things. They said, wait, shredding bad, let's go get the material. And so what do you view as what's happening there when now we have the greater transparency than we ever normally get? I mean, you and I, on most cases, we never get internal U.S. attorney emails about gathering evidence. I'm curious, as an investigative reporter, what do you see happening there? That tension between the folks on the ground potentially doing a cover-up, evidence destruction, and then the U.S. attorney's folks saying, wait, can we stop that?
Well, to the U.S. Attorney's Office credit, they created a file, a case number for this particular incident, and they did do some interviews on this. But the FBI conducted the interviews, and when you read the interview that was conducted of the orderly who allegedly was the first to report this, it's a very strange interview. They don't say to him, look, tell us what happened. They just give him yes and no questions. And you can tell he's very uncomfortable. In fact, it notes that one of the lieutenants who probably oversees him at the prison was present at this FBI interview. And he says at the end, look, I don't want any problems. I didn't see anything. I like my job here. And it's so very clear that the way that this whole thing was set up for this interview was to sort of make the problem go away.
Right. I think that's a clear inference. And that's why I mentioned that you see that in sort of a covering up of the cover up. They got caught to some degree shredding the docs, but they still, and this is what people get frustrated with government cover ups, seem to get out from under it. And then the Inspector General says, well, if you mention this, it looks bad, so we're not going to mention it at all. That's Michael Horowitz, the current DOJ Inspector General. Trump ousted many of them, but held on to him. People can make up their own mind what that implies. But it doesn't seem like it was a thorough, honest, independent report. It was also the report that minimized the so-called flash of orange that the FBI saw of a potential inmate on the loose the night before his death. Doesn't mean we know whether there's foul play. Could have been other problems. But I mentioned all that, and then the final question to you is, this corrections officer who was indicted but then the case dismissed, now Congress says maybe they want to learn more from her. She appears in your reporting as someone who was depositing multi-$1,000 cash deposits at a bank, was flagged 12 times for suspicious activity reports. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I just filed a story, actually, a new story about her. I dug into the files more about her, and she's actually a very interesting person. She is quite educated, and she comes from a very educated family. And she served in the U.S. Army Reserves, was in active duty in Kuwait, and then she came back after her assignment ended and decided to become a corrections officer. But again, when we're looking at these files, we see these things like her financial records. and a notation that her bank had flagged some of the cash deposits in her checking accounts. So it raises questions about, okay, well, where was the cash coming from? Yeah,
Has that been accounted for in any valid way?
I'm sorry?
Oh, has that been accounted for in a valid way? You know, she puts
No,
$5,000 cash in.
Right.
Wow. Just all this information that's just not accounted for and redacted. This is a story about how the DEA, all right, this is something very interesting. The DEA opened up an investigation on Jeffrey Epstein over ketamine, prostitution, and money. So we're finding out a lot of very interesting things about Epstein here. Hit that like button, guys. Let's go.
I'm just guessing you've had a busy week.
This story is
huge. Is blowing our minds. Tell us about the DEA investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. A few years ago.
So I spent it was in 2015. So I spent about a month on this. And in January, when the Justice Department released all of these Epstein files, millions of pages, there was a document, a few documents that caught my eye. And it was heavily redacted, but it showed that there was an investigation into illegitimate wire transfers involving illicit drug and or prostitution in the U.S. Virgin Islands and New York City. So this document was essentially showing how the DEA was working with an organized crime drug enforcement task force out of the DOJ. And I basically spent the past month
They give you ketamine now for like depression and anxiety. Is that what's happening?
understanding what was behind these redactions. The operation was called Operation Chain Reaction. And this part that involves Jeffrey Epstein and 12 other individuals and two business.
To just crush it up with the old boog shug and just boom. That was a long time ago. I'm clean.
Businesses that we revealed were named as part of this investigation. What we ultimately found out is that off of a tip from an informant, the DEA suspected Jeffrey Epstein and others of being involved in.
In fact, put a 1 in the chat if you've ever snorted ketamine. Anybody with me on this? I'm just curious. If you have snorted ketamine, and I have not done this in I would say decades since I actually did the K. It was the K, and then you would chop it up in the disco dust, and you would have yourself a little party, a little up and down at the same time. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever snorted ketamine. Don't lie to me. Welcome to the show, guys. We do news different.
The funding and distribution of ketamine, ecstasy, and other methamphetamines. And again, it grew out of this larger investigation. And what was
K-hole.
also
Exactly. The K-hole. Thank you.
Stood out in this document was after Jeffrey Epstein was released in 2009, there were multiple law enforcement agencies that were following his every move, more or less. They were tracking him, following his money, going into the National Crime Information Center database.
That's more people than I thought. Thank you for being so honest here. We appreciate it at the Zero Dark Tony channel. Thank you.
And trying to get some background on him. We were able to see how the Secret Service White House division in August 2014 did a search on Jeffrey Epstein for background information. Now, you'd only do that if you would be.
Definitely still a lot of weirdos out there. A lot of people who are hiding, right? Hiding behind these files, hiding behind the redactions.
If you're coming into contact with a Secret Service protectee, like the president or a protected.
What year was that, Jason?
That was in August 2014. So
who could have? I mean, I don't want you to speculate, but was in the Obama administration? That was during the Obama administration. But there are a lot of people who are protected by Secret Service. Sorry, go on.
I personally think the only way to find out the information for real is with a chair, some duct tape, pack of cigarettes, and a baseball bat. And I think that's the way to get to the truth in this case. I think that's the only way. Nobody's coming forward.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people protected by Secret Service, but I mean, a Secret Service protectee when you have the White House division, that's different. You know,
so maybe a former president?
It could be.
And that's just an opinion.
Former president, but that's a different. Again, that's a little different.
Okay.
Because it's a different division. So we did try
so
to
much blow out there. Everybody's doing blow.
You know, uncover, you know, what that was all about. And essentially what the Secret Service was, you know, ultimately looking at. But that more reporting will be revealed there. But this was just an unbelievable investigation. And
we're just going to pause this for a minute because I'm going to show you one of the people that really enjoy the party favors. And ladies and gentlemen, that man is Palm Beach Pete. This is the guy that looks like Jeffrey Epstein. Let's just get a little quick message here from Palm Beach Pete.
Hey everybody, it's Palm Beach Pete on a beautiful day driving in my convertible.
Holy shit, he looks so much. There's no way that this isn't him. Come on.
With my hat on backwards. What's with this Grand Theft Auto number 6? I heard everyone wants me to be in it. I would love to be involved. Grand Theft Auto, woohoo! Hey everybody, it's Palm Beach Pete.
He wants to be in GTA 6.
Day driving in my convertible.
Look at how much he looks like him. That's just weird, man. And he lives in Palm Beach. Shut up.
With my hat on backwards. What's with this Grand Theft Auto number 6? I heard everyone wants me to be in it. I would love to be involved. Grand Theft Auto, woohoo!
Wow. All right, let's get back to the ketamine. Jesus. That is a trip, isn't it? Isn't it?
Fortunately, because not all the files have been released by DOJ, it you know, remains to be seen how it ultimately shook out, you know, how it ended. What we do know is that none of the individuals, which includes Jeffrey Epstein's brother, his accountants, his lawyers, and there were women on there as well whose names we withheld because it's unclear whether they're victims. None of them were charged. So it remains to be seen exactly, you know, what happened here.
Jason, what blows my mind again, thanks to your reporting, is just a reminder of how much scrutiny Jeffrey Epstein was under by so many, in this case, government agencies and entities for years and a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, that really, really stood out to me. Even the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service, you know, they were looking at, they had an investigation that seemed to center around non-immigrant visas. Now, the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service also does investigate transnational crime, and that's the key here. This was not a small investigation involving, you know, just Jeffrey Epstein and one agency. This was a task force investigation, the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces, which linked up with the DEA to conduct this this far-reaching investigation. And like I said, it grew out of, you know, one that started in 2010 into organized crime, but then.
Yeah, I agree. We need to see some more charges coming out of these files.
Ended up on, you know, on Jeffrey Epstein.
Hey, Jason, just got about 45 seconds left here. Does it feel like they had a lot there and then they dropped the ball, or TBD? Because as you said, that there's still missing case files that have not yet been released.
Yeah, TBD on that one. I mean, it's starting to look like it may have informed another the 2019 prosecution, but I'll come back at you with additional reporting on that, Carol.
All right, and maybe next time we could talk to you about that latest DOJ drop.
I went through all of them, by the way.
There you go. That's the story of the DEA in 2015. Going after Epstein for some kind of drug trafficking operation. This right here is some footage from jail. This is a message to Sarah Kellen and Nadia Martinkova. Now, Nadia Martinkova was one of his pilots who has been missing for quite a while. Sarah Kellen, one of his reported assistants in his operation. So here's a message to them from jail.
Okay, so Darren and I are sitting here. You can hear the echo. I'm pretending I'm talking to Darren. So, hi Darren. So Sarah and Nadia, are you guys having a good time? You can see I have a little sore on my face that I got from some black guy trying to kiss me. It's really disgusting. With his tongue. Oh, it's really, oh. Anyway, I have pictures up on the wall. I had to borrow this.
If you haven't seen her before, this is Nadia Marchinkova. All right. She was one of his pilots, one of his top pilots. Allegedly also involved in some of the recruiting. Right. So
Scotch tape to get the pictures on the wall. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
So that's his quick message to Nadia Marcinkova, and
I found out
his. This was the attorney right here. This is Richard Kahn. All right. I'm sorry. This is his accountant, Richard Kahn, from his deposition the other day. We looked at the attorney. Now we're going to look at the accountant. These are the guys that knew all of his moves, and they just sit there and deny everything when there's records right in front of them. So let's have a listen to this one.
About Epstein's legal problems when we had a discussion in 2008. Epstein then told me that it was a mistake that he was with this minor. I was surprised. I've just been working for this man for a few years. Later learned as co-executor that Epstein continued to abuse hundreds of minors and adults. I'm not saying that I never saw minors. I'm saying, let me rephrase that. I never saw minors in Epstein's presence.
Is it fair to say the assistants were adult females?
Correct, yes.
Sorry to jump around in the timeline here, but in 2005, Mr. Epstein was, the investigation into Mr. Epstein in Florida began. I know you started your employment with Mr. Epstein in 2005. Prior to his arrest in 2006, were you aware of any investigations into Mr. Epstein?
I was not aware of any investigations, nor was I aware of the fact that Epstein was arrested. I found out about Epstein's legal problems when we had a discussion in 2008.
And who was part of that discussion in 2008?
The discussion was Epstein and myself.
And what did you discuss?
Epstein said he wanted to talk with me and mentioned that he was having legal problems in Florida. And he mentioned that he was with a woman that turned out to be a minor and that he was going to be charged with soliciting a minor for prostitution. Epstein then told me that it was a mistake that he was with this minor and that it would never happen again.
Where did this conversation occur?
I don't recall where it occurred. But that's the conversation that I recall.
Was it, do you recall if it was in person or over a phone or anything like that?
Like and subscribe, guys. Hit that like button for me.
And when Mr. Epstein informed you of his legal problems and that he had been with a minor, were you surprised by that fact?
Yeah, I was surprised. I've just been working for this man for a few years. So it was shocking to me, and it was quite upsetting. I know at the time that the crime was very serious. However, his sentence was rather light. I believe he served 13 months, of which he was allowed to leave the county jail 6 days a week for 12 hours a day. So I didn't fully grasp at the time, nor was I aware of the depth of what actually took place that I later learned as co-executor. But at the time, I unfortunately and regrettably trusted Epstein that this would never happen again, and I decided to stay working for him.
Oops.
And
that was a mistake.
Did Mr. Epstein inform you of the interaction he had with this minor woman at that time?
The only thing he told me was, excuse me.
Welcome, you guys. Good to see you.
He was mistakenly with a minor, and that he would never be with a minor again. That was a mistake on his part.
And I got to say to my audience, you all look amazing. I should just put that in here. Thank you.
But no specifics about what he was doing with this minor?
No.
Everybody's dressed.
Did you
nice
discuss
on,
Mr. Epstein's
nice
legal
on a
problems
Sunday.
with anyone else at that time?
I don't recall having any other substantive conversations with anyone else. And
Oh, the FBI definitely knocked on his door. He shook.
I don't believe I knew much more than what Epstein told me.
Welcome, everybody.
You didn't discuss his legal issues with anyone
Evan
else that you
Bell.
worked with?
I think everyone was, alarmed and scared that their employer was arrested. But I mean, there may have been some office chatter, but I can't recall the specific conversation.
And did you discuss how his legal problems and subsequent incarceration would affect his financial accounting?
Well, at the time, Epstein wanted to continue to employ everyone. He didn't want to fire people. And I know at the time, everyone that continued working for him received a pay cut of, I believe, 10%. And that was, what I recall from the time period. And additionally, that because Epstein was incarcerated, the amount of work that we all had diminished probably by about 30 or 40%.
And so outside of the 10% pay cut that employees faced, what other financial operations were changed during this time period of his incarceration in 2008?
Well, I would say, a lot of the transactions and work that would occur was when Epstein moved from property to property. So, for example, if Epstein was in New York and heading down to the U.S. Virgin Islands, to his islands, the property managers would want to make sure that the house was meticulous and that the landscaping
controlled
was
the purse
perfect
strings.
and there was food in the refrigerator, and they were able to accommodate Epstein and whoever he was traveling with. So there was a lot of work done in anticipation of Epstein moving from home to home, which would lead to more expenses and me having more interactions with the household staff if they needed an increase on their credit line or they needed cash to pay for bills or get things ready or purchase flowers. So in that regard, because he wasn't moving around from property to property, the amount and volume of transactions and work was diminished.
And did you receive a pay cut during this time?
Yes.
10%?
Yes, every employee did.
And what was your pay at this time?
I believe my salary was $180,000, or somewhere in the $180,000 range. It could have been 185 or 190. I believe my starting salary was $180,000.
That's nice.
And I think you briefly touched on this, but after learning of Mr. Epstein's legal troubles, you of course ultimately decided to continue your employment with Mr. Epstein. Did you ever consider leaving or discuss leaving your employment?
Yes, 100%. I apologize for not alluding to that earlier. I, without a doubt, question leaving him. And in hindsight, I regret that I relied on Epstein's word that this would never happen again. And I believe at the time we were in the middle of a financial crisis and I had a family to support. So I made the wrong decision in working for him, because I later learned as co-executor that Epstein continued to abuse hundreds of minors and adults. So I made an improper decision.
And you briefly, I think, touched on this before, obviously knowing that you started in 2005 and before Mr. Epstein formally came to you with his legal troubles in 2008. Did you suspect that he was ever trafficking women, sex trafficking women, or abusing women or girls in any way?
No, I never suspected any of that.
Did anyone in Mr. Epstein's orbit ever express concern to you about Mr. Epstein and
let him finish the question, dog?
His dealings with women before his 2008 conviction?
Before his 2008 conviction, I never saw minors in the presence of Epstein. On my visits every 3 weeks when Epstein was in town, occasionally I saw assistants, but I never saw anything that looked improper. In addition, no woman has ever come to me and said that she was in danger, that she was being sexually abused or sexually trafficked.
Hit that like button for me, guys. So now he's claiming that as he worked for Epstein, none of the girls, none of the women, nobody ever came to him. All right. He's stated that he saw no minors around Epstein. But now he's saying, you know, this is just this see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing. He didn't see nothing. He doesn't recall.
And just so that the record is clear,
a lot of blinking.
Saw no minors, no women outside of, or I'm sorry, no minors or girls.
And this, by the way, is about a 4-hour deposition. This is Richard Kahn. He was the accountant, by the way, for Jeffrey Epstein. Oh boy, this is like the Untouchables.
With Mr. Epstein at any time.
No, I'm not saying that I never saw minors. I'm saying, let me rephrase that. I never saw minors in Epstein's presence. Period. Correct. Yes, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that occasionally when Epstein was in the office, I did see his assistants, and no one ever approached me, communicated with me, and said that they were in danger or that they were being sexually abused or trafficked by Epstein.
Is it fair to say the assistants were adult females?
Correct. Yes.
When did you become aware that Mr. Epstein had to register as a sex offender following his arrest and incarceration in 2008?
I believe I became aware, I assume, after he was to be released from jail.
And who did you learn that from?
I learned that from his attorney, Darren Indyke. And the context of how I learned that was that as a registered sex offender, he was required to make a list of all of his phone numbers, I believe all of his transportation, his planes, his cars, and I believe a list of his properties as well. So at times, Darren Indyke would ask me questions about his properties or phone numbers or his aviation or cars.
Wow. So a lot of information there. I mean, these are the guys that were the gatekeepers, right? We had the lawyer on earlier. Now we see the accountant. I think we're going to see a lot more of these depositions coming into play by the oversight committees as we move forward with the information from this case, from the files. People are going to find things, right? They're going to get out. Now, right here, this is from the Jeffrey Epstein Media Archive. All right, this is a really great channel that I found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this in the chat. So if everybody wants to go over there and subscribe. All right, so let's have a look. This is celebrity photos of Jeffrey Epstein. So let's have a look. And remember, appearing in a photo or video with Jeffrey Epstein does not by itself imply wrongdoing. Please look into someone before accusing them. All right, so let's take a look. We are not doing the music. So we could see some from February 27th, 1997 in Mar-a-Lago. That is Jeffrey Epstein with current President Donald Trump here at the opening of the Harley Davidson Cafe in 1993. I think we're going to move through. And I believe they're circling Donald Trump there. Epstein was also at Trump's wedding to Marla Maples in 1993. Now, this was a big event. Lots of people got invited to this. I mean, Howard Stern, everybody who was anybody in New York got invited to this wedding. Trump, Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and then Melania Knauss, now Melania Trump, were all seen together on February 12th, 2000 something. Oh, 2000. Here we go. And you could see them having a good old time there. Michael Bolton, how am I supposed to live without you? And there we have the disgraced former Prince Andrew. Now he's just Andrew Mountbatten. All right, and there we have Ghislaine on the right, Jeffrey in the background. I don't know who this woman is. But then we have Melania and Donald here. There you go. The circles. Circle gets the square. Epstein and Trump were at a Victoria's Secret event. I think that was 97. Yeah. Epstein and Trump were at a Victoria's Secrets party on April 28th, 1997. Belgian model Ingrid Seinhave is also in the pictures. So a little bit more of the same party. So Epstein and Trump both attended the George Foreman versus Shannon Briggs boxing match on November 22nd, 1997 at the Trump Taj Mahal. They were not sitting together. Okay. I mean, you could see how far these circles are apart. They weren't sitting together. I mean, they both went. A lot of people went. And you can see them in the background. Yeah, it's like I said in the beginning, just because someone takes a photo with someone, it doesn't mean that they're guilty of anything. Just got to show both sides. This undated photo from the New York Times shows Epstein, Trump, and James Brown. He's got soul and he's super bad. So here's some footage. Jesus, who's this guy? With the size of him. Going into a party here. Some archive footage shot by NBC shows Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago with Jeffrey Epstein in 1992. That was more than a decade before Epstein's plea deal in Florida, which is important to mention here. And again, this is before the plea deal, before his crimes, right? After that, I believe Trump separated and severed all ties, according to him. But there is definitely some footage like this. I'm not calling it anything either way. I'm just reading what they put together here. Calm down. All right, so this is Trump and Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. And this is Trump and Epstein at Victoria's Secret. And that's interesting because when we watched the Les Wexner deposition, remember he said that he never knew of Jeffrey at any of these Victoria's Secret events. If you guys watched that coverage, so now he's here. And this doesn't incriminate anybody. It doesn't mean anything's done anything who is around Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of corruption, even in the pharmaceutical business. So here they are at the Victoria's Secret show. Tyra Banks walking the runway. So here they are. And a lot of controversy follows these. However, this is before his arrest, before his plea deal. Bill Clinton and Mick Jagger are seen with Jeffrey Epstein in Hong Kong in 2003. Let me tell you something. If Mick or Bill or anybody or Jeffrey stayed in any hotel, they recorded everything that they were doing. If they stayed in a hotel in Hong Kong, they recorded everything that they did. And they probably threw them some things to sort of try and get them jammed up, too, for a little blackmail. Bill Clinton and Epstein are seen together in the Emperor Suite in the Empire Hotel in Brunei. They were going to meet with the Sultan of Brunei, who, if you look up the Sultan of Brunei, some difficult stories. They have kind of matching shirts. That's weird. Bill Clinton and Epstein are seen together in the Emperor Suite. That's not spelled right. Empire Hotel in Brunei in 2002. So these are in 93. And we're going to see some more photos here. Now, this is, Bill Clinton's deposition was a few weeks ago. And boy, was he's just not on top of things. And very odd how Jeffrey Epstein had such open access to the White House during the Clinton administration. Where did that come from? Oh, I see what happened. Okay. That was obviously on the jet. Epstein and Michael Jackson. Epstein and Michael B. Jordan, like he's nowhere near him. Look, these guys are nowhere near him. And they're like, oh, look. Epstein and Elon Musk. Look at how far back Elon Musk is at a different table. Together at an edge.org. Remember edge.org, guys, because I'm going to show you something in a couple of minutes where he was at one of these edge meetings. Okay. Here they are on the Lolita Express. And here's Epstein and Larry Summers. There's his attorney, another attorney. Oh, and here's some of the footage from the conference that I was talking about. It's right here. This is the Edge conference. So you can see him in the background there. And there he is, Bill Gates, in 2011. Now, this is post-conviction for Jeffrey Epstein. So all these people knew that he was a convicted offender at this point, at this point. And this is Epstein and former Prince Andrew walking around Manhattan through Central Park. Boy, did they have a time. What a time they had. And in one of the films they're making, they reenacted this scene of the walk through Central Park. Oh, there's Epstein and Woody Allen. Blech. There's Woody Allen and Sun Yi, and there's Sun Yi again. Ugh, Woody Allen. I don't know about Woody Allen, man. I just can't get there. He's gross. People talk about his movie. I mean, Hollywood just defends this guy, right? They just defend Woody Allen because he's a director. That's why they defend him. Hollywood royalty. Woody Allen. It's just a mess. So here's some footage that some of you have probably never seen. Epstein and Jack Lang, a French politician. So Epstein got around. He would try and find political and financial, scientific influence wherever he could find it. Hollywood, the music business, anything that he could do to be on the cutting edge, right? To have these people and surround himself with these individuals, right? So here's a couple other of those clips from this channel. This is Jeffrey Epstein. This is one of the videos from the files that maybe you haven't seen yet. Hit the like button if you haven't seen this before. So there you go. That's crazy. That is just nuts. So let's move forward a little bit here. This is some of the footage that they showed you from the Edge seminar. We're going to get a little more detailed into this. All right. So here we go.
Similarity of the function of noise to the function of the winning strategies, in that if you're trapped in a local energy well in an energy landscape, you need some noise, a little bit of thermal energy to pop you into a potentially better one. And so there's a funny way in which it gives noise a moral quality, which we don't usually think about. And I think there's something, I mean, if you're going to project it into humanistic terms, it would translate into too much self-certainty is the enemy of all of these good qualities, and it's true mathematically. The other thing was, to me, a very interesting problem is a global challenge. Global warming is a great example, where the whole population would benefit from finding a degree of cooperation, but we're evolved to be competing groups. And when you start to have a global group facing an enemy, which is just circumstance, in a way it confounds all our strategies. And I wonder if that's part of how we evolve sort of imaginary foes, which you find in religions and so forth. If we need to sort of imagine some other entity that we're playing the game with in order to cooperate as a whole. So
two questions. The first question was noise.
Okay, so this is interesting. This is very interesting. I just went over to edge.org and I see this first page. I see this first page here. Okay. These are the contributors to edge.org. That is what we're watching. We're watching one of the seminars from edge.org is when that guy was just speaking right there. We're going to go back to that in a second. But what you see here that I find to be very curious, that one of the donators, one of the people contributing to edge.org, second one down from the top, okay, is the name Marina Abramovic. Wow. So she's a contributor, all right? And you're going to see as we go through some of these people, you've got Anthony Aguirre, professor of physics, right? Let's go through this. Professor of economics, artist, author, Alan Alda, okay? Alan Alda contributed to this. Professor of physics at Brown University. Stefan, remember I told you he was into the scientists. He was into this kind of thing. This is what helped his baseline, right? Credibility. We have Natalie Anger, a Pulitzer Prize-winning science writer, right? Assistant professor of psychology, University of Pennsylvania. So you can go and look at this list. It's edge.org people. I'm going to do a little deeper dive on that later because I didn't realize that Marina Abramovic is now connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. Okay. It's go back here. Jesus.
And noise comes in a kind of beneficial way in different ways here. The one is the noise in the evolutionary process. So the noise in which strategies reproduce from one generation to the next. And this allows you to explore fitness landscapes and allows you to avoid being stuck at a certain place. Another thing that avoids being stuck is sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction is a kind of noise generator to generate combination.
That's been my experience.
And another way how noise comes in, interestingly, is in the repeated game. If you don't have noise, there's a lot of unbroken symmetry between strategies. Many strategies look the same because the off-equilibrium passes are never visited with.
Jeffrey Epstein is right on the right of the frame here. You could see his glasses right there.
Without noise. So noise is something that differentiates the subtleties of strategies. And only adding noise to the analysis gives actually the rich understanding.
So this is a seminar where scientists are talking.
Nobody cooperated in public, but people still.
They can run statistics and all statistics and create.
And you can see Jeffrey right there.
My own sense, just from having looked at it a little bit, is that it's very similar to becoming a defector in that initially it can create rewards and then it can the rewards can be short-lived, but the overall gain degrades. So there's something in common, but there's also some different.
So there you see him at that meeting, and this is all about, you know, science and everything from psychology to astronomy. I mean, that's what they cover. And you can go look at that list and you'll see that's just the A's that we were looking at. There are hundreds of names in there. So a little bit of Epstein footage here. Outside his Manhattan mansion, walking outside. Not sure who the individual is with him. Greetings, everybody. Hit that like button. So again, Jeffrey Epstein. I wonder who got this footage. Hey, Mopey. What's going on? So as she walks away there, Epstein pulls off in a vehicle. All right, so now we're going to jump to some more footage of Epstein in court.
Today, the guilty plea and deal end a years-long process that could have sent Epstein to jail for 50.
A federal judge on Thursday denied Jeffrey Epstein's request for bail. Epstein has been...
After 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility, Epstein will serve another 12 months house arrest at his Palm Beach home. The 54-year-old will be confined to his home except for work and other activities.
There was a point where Mr. Epstein was taken out of the room. Somehow, his lawyers...
13 months in jail and was required to reach settlements with his...
that could have sent Epstein to jail for 15 years.
Epstein's lawyers then took a sidebar and went up and...
Open court. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility.
Extraordinary break. A backroom...
In open court. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility.
Walk out of jail, but only his attorneys heard from him.
He's very happy that his jail sentence.
16 hours a day to visit a plush West
There's
Palm Beach
Darren.
office to do his business.
A smile and a wave to the deputy at the
Darren.
door. We watched Jeffrey.
18 years. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility.
I'm not skipping. This is the way the clip is edited. They're just showing him in court.
Justice wasn't served. Everybody looked the other way. And we find out that what the government did was...
See, that's a jump clip that they put in there.
Point where Mr. Epstein...
It was negotiated between...
So there he is in federal court. And we're going to go back over here because we see a little footage of a guy sticks his head out. And oh, guess who that is? Hi, Prince Andrew. There he is. Just a flash. Just a little flash of Andrew there. So we're definitely not doing any jumping around there. And this is an interesting story from Wired about how they tracked phones from Epstein Island. This one's great.
The secret
of Jeffrey Epstein remain tightly guarded. But earlier this year, I spearheaded a Wired investigation that uncovered the data of almost 200 mobile phones belonging to visitors to his infamous pedophile island. The data was so precise, we were able to map the paths of these visitors to within centimeters, including their neighborhoods, buildings of origins, and the paths they took to get to the island.
Wow.
These digital trails document the numerous trips of wealthy and influential individuals, seemingly undeterred by Epstein's status as a convicted sex offender. Wired's analysis of the data is ongoing, and it raises profound questions about privacy and surveillance. This is Epstein Island's secret.
I will be picking back up on my war coverage tomorrow, so hit the subscribe, hit your notification, hit that like button, and definitely get on the train, because we do this a lot with a lot of great new information.
Data on the grid. This is Little St. James, aka Epstein Island. These red dots on the map represent some of the 11,279 coordinates I obtained. They were left exposed online by a location data broker with ties to the Defense Department called Near Intelligence. Between 2016 and Epstein's final arrest in 2019, Near collected data on more than 200 cell phones that visited the island. We don't know why they did that or which client or prospective client of Near decided to query the data in this way to produce the maps. But the maps you'll see in this video show where visitors to Epstein Island spent most of their time. Let's take a step back. You might be wondering, where is Epstein Island anyways? Well, it's here. Little St. James is a private island that is part of the U.S. Virgin Islands, an unincorporated territory of the United States in the Caribbean Sea. Epstein purchased Little St. James in 1998 for $7.95 million. It's about 71 acres, the size of 54 football fields. He made the island his primary residence and soon after began welcoming visitors and throwing infamous parties where he was accused of having groomed, sexually assaulted, and trafficked untold numbers of women and girls. The maps of the data collected by Near, and which we at Wired recreated here, indicate the most visited spots on the island. From the main house here with the pool, to the beaches and the large sundial, it's all on display, including the enigmatic Hilltop Temple site over here, which has been the focal point in speculations about Epstein's mysterious activities on the island. But the tracking of phones wasn't contained to Little St. James. Surveillance continued long after the visitors left. The data reveals the locations of visitors 30 minutes before and after arriving on the island, which shows us the exact routes everyone took to get there. Some landed here, at the Cyril E. King Airport on neighboring St. Thomas Island. With its private jet and VIP terminals, it was the go-to hub for Epstein's 200-seater Boeing 727 plane dubbed Lolita Express. We see data points clustered at various area beaches, hotels, and luxury resorts, including the Ritz-Carlton Hotel here. To get to Epstein's Island, many visitors got on a boat at a designated dock at the American Yacht Harbor, a private marina on St. Thomas co-owned by Epstein at the time. From there, we see a flow of movement through Great St. James Island, the larger island just to the north, which Epstein purchased in 2016 for $22 million. He had hoped to develop it, but was met with legal challenges after damaging the island's coral reefs and protected habitats. The data then traces visitors' movements as they are ferried to Epstein's private dock on Little St. James. Epstein also had a helipad on the island and owned at least one helicopter, a Sikorsky S-76, which he used often to transport himself, guests, and victims from the airport or elsewhere, according to legal documents and testimony. It's worth noting that the data reveals a regular flow of traffic to and from Little St. James between 2016 and 2019. A lot of people were visiting the island even after Epstein had pleaded guilty in 2008 and served jail time for procuring a minor for prostitution. If we keep following the data trail and we widen our view, we'll see that the tracking of visitors continues once they have left the island and presumably gone back home. The Near Intelligence data we uncovered pinpoints 166 locations throughout the United States in 80 cities across 26 states. Topping the list were Florida, Massachusetts, Texas, Michigan, and New York.
Wow.
The data points are labeled as common evening locations or common daytime locations, typically their homes or work. Many of the visitors were likely wealthy, as indicated by coordinates pointing to gated communities in Michigan, as well as homes in Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket in Massachusetts. We even have data points from a downtown Miami nightclub, and also the sidewalk across the street from Trump Tower in New York City. Before we jump to conclusions, some sources have highlighted interactions between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein at social events. But after Epstein's 2008 conviction, there are no verified reports of Trump maintaining a relationship with a convicted pedophile. Take a look at this point over here in New Mexico. This is a property that was owned by Epstein, a secluded 8,000-acre ranch. Another property of Epstein's is seen over here on El Brio Way in Palm Beach, Florida. This waterfront mansion was sold, demolished, and is now being rebuilt. But it was where prosecutors claimed Epstein trafficked numerous underage girls with the intention of molesting and abusing them. But we don't just see the coordinates of wealthy homes amongst the data. The median household income of Palm Beach is more than twice that of nearby communities where we also see data points. Some of these points could represent victims or employees who worked on the island, which is why we're careful about revealing names and continue to carefully analyze the data. If we zoom out more, we notice something strange. There are no data points anywhere in Europe. Does this mean it was strictly Americans visiting Jeffrey Epstein on his island? No. We do see data points from the cache identifying origin cities in Australia, the Cayman Islands, and way over here in Kyiv in Ukraine. We know that Epstein himself had a place in Paris. And we know from victim testimony and flight logs that his associate, Jean-Luc Brunel, owner of a modeling agency in Paris, did visit the island. So why don't we see these data points? One possibility could be Europe's extensive privacy laws. Considered the strongest privacy and security law in the world, the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, gives Europeans robust rights to their personal data, even outside of Europe. Under comparatively lax US privacy laws, Near Intelligence was able to source its location data for this precision surveillance. To explain how this data might have been collected in the first place, we
Help me out and hit that like button for me, guys. Thank you so much.
need to talk about the world of digital advertising and data brokers. The reason you get a targeted ad displayed on an app or a website is because apps on your phone have been transmitting information about you to ad exchanges and real-time bidding platforms. That information often includes your location data. Data brokers like
If this guy can do this, they absolutely know who was there. He just said he wasn't giving out their names, which is great. But I hope some of this information went to law enforcement.
Near Intelligence extract, repackage, analyze, and sell the data from these ad platforms. In fact, according to internal company documents from 2019, Near Intelligence, which has roots in Singapore and Bengaluru, India, claimed to have information on around 1.6 billion people in 44 countries. They offer a platform for searching that allows their clients to query their vast data set by drawing a box around a specific area like Little St. James. Near then provides insights about the devices it observed within the selected area. We don't know who or why someone searched Epstein Island, but the reports and maps they created were sitting unprotected and totally searchable as publicly accessible code. And that's where we found them. And those aren't the only Near Intelligence datasets that we found. Google's web crawlers were able to locate at least 2 other reports, one geofencing the Westfield Mall in the Netherlands, and another targeting a park in El Paso, Texas. This is data unrelated to our investigation about Epstein Island, but it shows how unsafe personal data can be. In some cases, it's just a Google search away. So pro tip, if you don't want your personal data swimming around in the murky waters of programmatic advertising, make sure you limit ad tracking on your phone, disable location services and third-party cookies, and use an ad blocker. So what happened to the island after Epstein reportedly committed suicide in a Manhattan federal jail while awaiting trial for sex trafficking? Well, in May of 2023, billionaire investor Steven Dieckhoff purchased both Little St. James and Great St. James for $60 million. He's currently building a luxury resort on Little St. James that he says could open.
Who's going to go there? I mean, really, who's going to go there?
As early as 2025. Also, Ghislaine Maxwell, former British socialite and Epstein accomplice, was convicted in 2021 on 5 counts, including sex trafficking of minors by force. Maxwell was arrested in Bradford, New Hampshire, tracked to $1 million home by federal agents using location data pulled from her cell phone. I'm Dhruv Mehrotra. The Wired investigation into the secret data of Epstein's Island continues.
So yeah, we're going to be definitely looking at a lot of different stories from them. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. If this helped you get through the noise, hit the like before you head out so more people actually see it. Hit that like button for me. Subscribe with notifications on so you get every drop from my channel. All right. And I'm so happy to come out with you guys today. Look at that close up. I ain't afraid of no close up. What's up? So thank you, everybody, for coming on and joining me. Thank you, mods. Thank you for the gifted memberships, for the super chats, and all that fun stuff. If you learned something, hit that like button, and make sure you come around the next time, because truth is a moving target. And I got to say, leave a comment in the comment section below. Let's talk about it down there. Truth is a moving target, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night. Double tap your screen. Double tap your screen. And there's the link to that video. Thank you, guys.